deal about what people know about me, and more importantly, what they're going to do with the information. For the first time in a recent Pew Research poll, Americans are concerned about the information that is collected about them. Look back at our history and think, when did data collection become such a part of our lives? I would date it probably about the turn of last century, somewhere around the 1900s. Certainly, data collection became a big thing during World War II. One of the things that we noticed about our population is when World War II broke out and the Selective Service Act was implemented, that was the first time the United States had taken a picture of its population, and they discovered a great many things were wrong with people. They had poor dentition. We had poor nutrition. And these facts that heretofore had not been gathered, not been thought of, were collated and acted upon, and resulted in programs like the food programs we have, the kindergarten programs we have. So all of this information sounds like a good thing to have and a good thing to do. But when do we reach that line that says, you don't really need to know this piece of information? A couple of weeks ago, I happened to be coming back home from this event, as a matter of fact. I think it was a Toastmasters meeting. And I did what I know thousands of people in Clovis do, thousands, millions of people in America do every day. I came up to a stop sign without fully stopping. I made a rolling stop. And I didn't think much about it until I saw some flashing lights in my rearview mirror. And a policeman pulled me over. He was nice. I don't suppose he looked at my driver's license, saw my age, and decided, well, I'm not going to write her a ticket. I'll just be nice to the elderly lady and just give her a warning. And so he did. And then he asked me, he said, who is your employer? Who do you work for? And I'm instantly thinking to myself, why do you need to know that? There's all kinds of information available to you by virtue of the fact that you have my driver's license. Why do you need? So I uncharacteristically drew back from my level of feistiness that I was building up to and said, gave him the truth, gave him the answer. But it bothered me all the way home and days afterward. It still bothers me. Why did he ask? He said, when I asked him why he needed to know, that it was a new requirement. Well, the other part of me wanted to say, okay, show me. Show me the ordinance, show me the book, show me the statute or whatever that says that you need to know this information. And I was all set to follow up with the chief of police the next day, and I never did. But the bigger issue is we freely, to myriad agencies and individuals, give up all kinds of information. When the Social Security Administration was initiated in 1933, and everyone was assigned a Social Security number, it was written in the law at that time that the Social Security number would never be used for identification. Never. How many times are you asked to provide your Social Security number in order to identify you? Make sure it's you inquiring about an account balance or whatever it is. The information we give up on our medical history. Now there is an organization, or HIPAA, which is the act that is supposed to keep medical information private. But that goes, you give up that information and say, okay, it's going to be private. But you put it into some kind of a system. Maybe that system is going to be hacked, but maybe the individual who takes the information is going off to the side and selling it. We don't know. But I think there is even a worse possibility of the things that can go wrong with the information that we give up freely. Because we give it up thinking that it's going to be used for good and that it will never come back to bite us. In the 1950s, and this started actually in the late 40s, culminated in the 1950s. There was a gentleman who was a very smart man in what was then the Czechoslovakia. He was an economist for them. And he had, by virtue of his job, he needed to go to England and sit in on several conferences and things to determine how the economy was going to work for that particular country. So he met with certain people, he said certain things, wrote certain things. Talk about situational awareness. He was a dyed-in-the-wool communist, believed in communism, believed it was the right thing to do on an intellectual level. But he missed some of the signs of what was happening in his own country and thought everything was okay. He was beginning to get some word that he was going to be punished or admonished. Something was he was going to lose his job. He didn't believe it would happen, but it did. And when the communists put on one of their 1950s era show trials, everything he had done was turned around and used against him. All the information he had provided, what he had written, the conferences he had attended, the people he had met and interacted with, what he had decided and what subsequently the country had decided to do economically was turned against him. He was tortured and ultimately killed, and his family suffered greatly as a consequence. So every time you are asked to give up a piece of information, I want you to get feisty. I want you to get on your high horse. I want you to challenge the need for that particular piece of information. I want you to know how it's going to be used, and I want you to know how it's going to be retired. Because what we put out there really ought to come back to us, but we don't ask for it. We Americans are very casual, very trusting, and we need to be less trusting. One of the questions of World War II is, well, how is it that so many Jews could have gotten on these trains and gone to places not knowing that they were going to never come back? Because they trusted their government at the time. They believed they would not be hurt. Don't believe it. Really take control of the information you have and keep it safe.